Mark Jones, television voice for the Kings. He is broadcasting the NBA Celebrity All-Star Game tomorrow on ESPN out in San Francisco. I have so many questions about that, Mark. But I want to loop you in. I want to loop you in on a conversation we've been having about the Kings in kind of that fine line between, because I'm a naturally pessimistic sports fan, and finding that line between, hey, they're just sneaking by the shorthanded Mavericks and the 12-win Pelicans versus, yeah, hey, they're still figuring things out. They're integrating a bunch of new players. They had 28 assists last night. Keon had 27 off the bench. And finding the difference between, oh, they're stacking towards being competitive in the playoffs versus, oh, they're just kind of getting by against bad teams.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think you can put any qualifiers on wins at this point with Sacramento. A win is a win is a win. It doesn't matter how you slice it up, especially when you look at all the mitigating circumstances, right? All the new bodies, all the new players that the Kings have added, the issue of being able to develop chemistry. Those are analogous to players being absent on the other side, right? I think anyway, because when you look at even the play of Zach LaVine, right, he's still working his way through the familiarity of his teammates and getting on the same page with them, and Valanciunas as well. And, you know, they've got some issues too. So anytime you get a win, I think you just take it and run on to the next like they will tonight. And all things being considered, I love the resourcefulness that Doug Christie has shown recently in being able to use the different combinations of lineups with the lack of familiarity and making it work. You know, like the Lithuanian Lightning Towers that we saw a couple of games ago in Dallas, using those two guys at the same time, and finding time for LaRavia to look as moderately comfortable as he has. So all things considered, you know, 3-game winning streak, 3 games over 500. Hey, listen, Dallas still had Kyrie. Zion was still playing for New Orleans. You win, you win. Everybody's got their issues in the NBA. So you take it and you run with it.
You know, Mark, you brought up Jake LaRavia there, and, you know, I had a conversation with him before they left, but then you had another conversation with him about like some of the basics that are different in Sacramento versus what they are in Memphis. Just how difficult is it for a player to basically like get off a plane and, hey, we need you to go out there and play. And, oh, by the way, we do this, this, and this are basic principles. I need you to follow those basic principles. Or sometimes you skip that step and they get out on the court and they don't know that they shouldn't be funneling players right to the middle.
Yeah, it's different. Like I asked Jake exactly that. I said, give me the basic differences defensively first. And he said, man, it's a big difference here in Sacramento as compared to Memphis. In Memphis, we would always hedge to the middle. That's where the help was. He said, I've got to deprogram myself because here in Sacramento, we like to ice defensive terminology and send things baseline just because of the way the respective teams are built, right? When you've got Memphis, you've got Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year, waiting for you in the paint, and Zach Edey as well. Sacramento's built a little differently than that, so they like to send things baseline and keep it out of the paint. So he has to deprogram himself at that end of the floor. Offensively, it was really interesting too, because Memphis this year, I'm not sure if people noticed, but they are the most unique team offensively in the NBA because they run an offense which Taylor Jenkins likes to call invading space. They are last in the league in ball screen actions. They're way below the average. The average is about 78, 80 ball screens, DHOs per game. They're around like 38, 40 per game. So they're really spread, and they work in a system where you just dribble to space, and they have certain rotations. It's almost like a sink and fill type deal. Mm-hmm. And Jake told me that he usually found himself as the guy that was cutting through a lot of times make space, right? Because when you get a guy cutting through, that opens up part of the floor. And that kind of movement is a little bit different, actually significantly different from our base offense in Sacramento, what we call 5 or even 4 sometimes. So despite all that, he's done pretty well. And he's still figuring out, he says, where his shots are going to come from within the offense. And, you know, playing with Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane is a lot different than playing with, you know, Malik and Sabonis and anyone else that we have.
Talking with Mark Jones, television voice of the Sacramento Kings. I assume then that a lot of those same things apply to Zach LaVine, who has had his trouble putting the ball in the basket since joining the Kings.
Yeah. You know what? And I was watching the game last night. I was looking for it. I didn't hear it. But, you know, in Dallas, kind of gave the audience the answers before the test, in that they've got some sets that Zach used to run with DeMar even in Chicago. And they opened the game with it last game, where they ran some chin action, and it was supposed to be a lob to Zach for a dunk. It ended up being a catch and layup. But, you know, Jay Triano and Doug are doing a great job, and Dipesh Mistry, another one of our assistant coach, of collabing and finding things that Zach did well in Chicago, some of those sets. And if that opening play wasn't going to Zach, if that wasn't available, it would have been a hit to Sabonis at the elbow, dribble handoff, and DeMar coming off of that into the paint. So the first option was available. They never got to option number 2 or 3, but I think you'll see Sacramento incorporate a lot of those things to get Zach going. And like, what is it, 5 games he's played with us now, 4 or 5? It's still a really small sample size. And I have no doubt that he'll get right back up to that, you know, 22 to 25 points per game, and the 3-point shooting will come again. And that is always a bigger adjustment than most people think. And especially the way that we played compared to the way that Chicago's a little bit more closer to Sacramento than Memphis was when we were talking about LaRavia, but it's still a pretty good adjustment. And Zach's a talented guy. He can go get his own too. We've seen that.
Mark, we're going to need Doug and Jay and Dip to go and make a game plan for how to get Keegan Murray into some of the actions that he was in last year or the year before that were productive and worked. I don't know if you know this. He hasn't scored 20 points in a game since
November 24th.
Yeah, the game right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I feel for Keegan because he's doing all the dirty work, and you know, there's a lot of firepower in that starting lineup, man. You know, when you look at there's some mouths to feed right there, right? I mean, Zach just comes in, he's a 24 point per game guy, and DeMar's 20, Sabonis is 20, Monk is 18, 17. And I don't know what the answer is there. I think that at some point maybe he needs a little bit of a mental reset, but I'd love to see him hunt shots. And, you know, I don't think it's a situation where the ball purposefully doesn't come his way, but I think Keegan is always looking to play the right way, almost to a fault sometimes. Yeah. And I think there's a point where he could help himself out a little bit by hunting shots. And nobody's going to get mad at a guy who is locking up the other team's best perimeter wing player for taking an extra shot or two, right? Right. So I think that's a little bit of a psychological point where he's got to get to, and it might tip in his favor at some point. We hope that it does, right? Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think about that? I look at the number of every time I get a box score after a game, I look at the number of field goal attempts Keegan has. And if the only time I'm happy is when it's like anywhere between 12 and 15. I'd love it between 15 and 18 because I think he's that good a shooter. But, you know, and with Malik handling a little bit more now, I'm wondering if some of those looks might get to Keegan somehow. And even Zach LaVine, because if you guys notice, like Zach does a lot of the primary ball handling duties a lot too. He'll bring it across a lot too. And maybe that makes Keegan a little bit more available for some actions. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is a question we had, like, kind of going back to last year. Is that just kind of in his nature as a person to be like, hey, get me the ball. Like, I need to shoot it. I think you're right. And I think saying he tries to do the right thing almost to a fault, I think it's kind of what it comes down to is he's a 24-year-old dude looking around and going, all right, that's DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
That's Malik Monk, who I've watched be the sixth man of the year twice now, or should have been. I've got Domantas Sabonis in there. And now we bring in Zach LaVine, who I've been watching since I was a kid. I'm going to go hang out over here. I'm going to play great defense. And I think that's going to kind of be my role.
Yeah, we got to get him to another Rod Wave concert or something to get those juices going again.
I agree.
It's a hard spot that he's in. And I'm not sure if the guys have contemplated any kind of starting lineup change. I don't know if that's in the air anywhere, but I'm not even sure that that's the answer right now. I'd love to see him hunt shots, especially when the ball comes to him on some of those second side actions, and it gets reversed and he makes the catch. I'd love to see him just snap drive to the basket and make something happen. And, it's about being able to get into a new flow with the way that we're playing now offensively, because it is, even since Doug took over, guys, it's looked a little bit different, right? We're running a lot more stack and elbow actions as opposed to some of the DHOs that we used to just flow into.
Yeah, I would agree completely. Mark, you're going to be there at All-Star Weekend, and I know Kyle has a question about the celebrity game.
I have 50.
He's got a ton. But before we get there, you're around the league. You fly from one spot to the next. I don't even know how many miles you put in the air every single year. But what is the general consensus with Domantas Sabonis? Because having him not be at the All-Star game, to me, is one of the most criminal things that I've seen in the league. And then to have injury replacements and Domas get left out of injury replacements as well. To me, it's such an embarrassment for the league that a guy that's averaging over 20, leading the league in rebounding for the third straight year. He's in the top 3 in 3-point percentage, averaging over 20 a game, and he can't get an All-Star nod.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I've gone around a few laps on this thought, and I just come back to, his game's not sexy, right? So maybe that's it. The Kings are 3 games above 500, so you can't use that as an excuse, the winning component that some people like to point to sometimes. I think that overall his statistics are, for the most part, impactful. I don't think they're empty calories. And he's not the type of guy that gives you blazing headlines or quotes. That's not his fault. That's who he is, and that's cool. And sometimes that doesn't work in popularity contests, which is what it is. But I'm a little disappointed that the coaches didn't put more weight on his body of work. Because they know. It blows my mind, man. It blows my mind, because he should be playing down the street here in San Francisco on Saturday, and his game may not be. Listen, he's not Anthony Edwards, right?
Sure.
There's not a lot of sizzle on that steak for Domas, but the numbers are the numbers, and if we're measuring productivity and winning, then he should be there. He should be there, and he, like you said, he leads the league in rebounding, double doubles, plays the game hard. I don't know that there's a more relentless guy in the NBA, but maybe relentless doesn't sell. I don't know.
Mark Jones, television voice of the Kings. You're broadcasting the Celebrity All-Star Game tomorrow.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions just for you on that before we get you out of here real quick. One, how much preparation do you do for this broadcast?
Man, it's tricky. So, I'll get the list, and I'm pulling up the list right now of people in it. Okay, so the coaches are Barry Bonds and 2 Chainz. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, great rapper, right? I sold 2 Chainz a second chain, by the way, just in case you guys are wondering.
He was
Jerry
Lone
Rice.
Chain.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite rap brags of all time. He says, "I wear pajamas to Ruth's Chris." It's just an unbelievable line. I love 2 Chainz.
Okay.
I love that. Kai Sennett, Baron Davis, Alicia Gray, looking forward. So that's a real basketball player, right, for the WNBA. Tucker Halpern apparently played collegiate basketball. Did a little research on him. Masai Russell, gold medalist, track and field, 100-meter hurdles. She's an exceptional talent. I'm a huge track and field fan, so that one came a little bit easier. Matt Barnes is playing for Team Rice. Chris Brickley is an interesting one. I'm familiar with Chris a lot because he trains a lot of the NBA stars around the league. Jimmy Butler. He works out with a lot of the high-end guys. Who else? We've got Terrell Owens, a 2-time celebrity game MVP.
Good player.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what T.O. looks like because, guys, how old is he now? Like
48?
Got to be in his high 40s.
Yeah, something like that.
I think he might be older than that.
We have the technology to figure this out.
We do.
That was the 96 draft.
Yeah, I have a researcher preparing charts for me on this game. I mean, like, come on.
He's 51. Yeah,
he's 51. Yeah, like, what am I going to ask him? What is Pablo Schreiber's points per game average in the Celebrity League? I mean, yeah, Shabuzi. And Drewski's one of the participants too. Another Drewski, the influencer, the streamer. Yeah.
So how do you balance, and we've only got like a minute here, but how do you balance the like, hey, this is a fun celebrity all-star game versus trying to like be a professional broadcaster?
Still trying to figure it out, man.
Okay, very good.
Still trying to figure it out. Sometimes you'll get stretches of good basketball.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of lean into the hybrid good athletes like the NFL guys or WNBA players that might be playing, or you'll get an influencer or like Quavo, right? When he played in it, he's 2-time MVP. He plays a lot of basketball, so those guys will be pretty good. And if those guys get into a ball stopper hogging mode, then we'll get some good basketball. But if they get too deferential and start passing, then it goes down from there. But you just roll with it, man. We got a 4-point shot. We've got a penalty box deal where if you foul in the third quarter, it's a 5-on-4. I mean, we got the whole circus going in this game, man. I'm reading over the rules right now, so you never really know what you're going to get in this game, but it's fun anyway.
Well, not many people better to suited a game like that to broadcast a game like that than you, Mark. Appreciate your time, man, and enjoy the heck out of this weekend. All right.
Thanks.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark. It's Mark Jones, television voice of the Sacramento Kings.